two, three.
What are some of the subtle signs that unresolved trauma is still running someone's lives? I know that you were able to pinpoint the low self-esteem and being attracted to narcissistic relationships and being a people pleaser or, and giving everything that you have because you want people to like you. Is there any other signs that you want to bring out?
Yeah, I guess big one is I mentioned as well, overworking, overachieving, because
Mm,
you need
okay.
that feeling of validation to feel
Mm,
accepted and to feel wanted and to feel like you are something and that you have something to give to the world because that's what that's all we crave, don't we? When we're suffering from low self-worth, then we want ways to make us feel better. And
right.
so yeah, so it might come out in overachieving, but then it might also come out in addiction. So it could be addiction to shopping. That's the big one that I see.
Really?
'Cause, you need that feel good hormone, the dopamine hit from
Yeah,
obviously
yeah, yeah.
shopping. So that's an interesting one. And also, unfortunately, drugs are a huge one, as we know, and alcohol because we want to escape. And
Mm-hmm.
then and also just the need of having like the fact that you need a relationship because you need to feel desired by somebody.
Yeah.
And so that's when we end up falling into bad relationships, because we're falling into them fast and we're falling into them without having the self-love for ourselves, because that's where it all starts. It's loving
Hmm.
ourselves, and that's hard to do as a trauma survivor. And it took me a while to even like myself, never mind love.
Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind podcast, the show where we renew our minds, heal from past trauma, and step into the lives we were always meant to live. I'm your host, Myrna Young, and in today's conversation is one that needs to be heard, especially if you ever felt silenced by your past, trapped in cycles you couldn't explain, or ashamed of wounds that you never caused. My guest today is Anu Verma, a certified complex trauma recovery coach and therapist, and the founder of Victim to Victor. Welcome, Anu.
Hi, such a pleasure to be on this fabulous show and with you, an incredible host.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm interested in this conversation as well because it's a conversation that needs to be had. And whenever I get to visit, some of the things that, I struggled with as a human and coming through the same scenario as you, I love to share because the two of us are not the only ones. There's thousands that has similar stories. All right, so let me guys give you a little bit more information. Anu is also a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and domestic violence, who turned her pain into purpose by helping others reclaim their voice and their power. Raised in a traditional Indian household where silence and honor were praised above truth, Anu carried her trauma quietly for decades until unresolved pain began showing up as low self-worth, addiction, and toxic relationships. Her healing journey led her to write the powerful memoir, Victim to Victor, launch a podcast amplifying survivors' voices, and now develop a feature film called Silent Screams, a story about breaking the silence and reclaiming your life. Today's conversation isn't just about trauma, it's a conversation about healing, courage, and what becomes possible when you finally tell what happened to you. So, if you're ready to understand how your past may be shaping your present and how healing can transform your future, Please stay until the end. All right. So, with that introduction, let's get into today's powerful conversation. Anu, your story is incredibly powerful. Can you take us back to the moment you realized that your self-destructive patterns weren't who you were, but rooted in unresolved trauma?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I just had so many traumatic relationships, and it was just this one relationship with an actual narcissist. I found out after. I had no idea what a narcissist was, but he had all the traits of a narcissist. And he was the one that really shaped who I am today because he financially abused me. He basically used my credit card to buy himself an £8,000 watch.
Wow.
And but yeah, but in order to get to that, he'd already created this whole facade, this whole story about himself and how, he was on so much money and that he was going to be like, the fact that his credit card wasn't working and that he just needed to obviously just use a credit card to pay for this watch and then the money will be transferred into my account the following um Monday because this was on the Friday. And so, obviously by that point, I believed everything he said because I'm a believer, because I'm an empath, and it's just natural for me to trust in others. And obviously there's a whole other side to that in the fact that, because of my low self-worth and because of my people-pleasing tendencies due to my trauma, I really I needed that validation from whoever was willing to give it to me, and obviously that's what narcissists preach on, don't they? They preach on the vulnerable, they preach on the naive. They absolutely love our traits. And so for him, I was an easy target. And for me, it was a win-win because he was giving me everything that I needed. Like the love bombing was just wow, you know, the love bombing phase. And it's just interesting, isn't it? When you have a look at the stages of narcissism, you just think, wow, this is like textbook. Like he literally did all of this. It was such
Yeah. Yeah.
such a wake-up call for me. And I understand that people who may not have been exposed to a narcissist or have fortunately not been in a relationship with one, then it's probably not that easy for them to understand. I feel like, it's only the survivors that actually truly understand what it's like. So it again, he added to my trauma where the money never came into my account, and so I was practically begging him, and then he
Hmm.
obviously made it all about me, saying that I was the culprit, and then he started to twist the story, saying that the watch was a gift from me.
Oh,
But
wow.
by that point, I was just like, no, no, that's it. We're so done. We're so done. Finally, I had the courage to actually walk away from him because I knew, something wasn't right, and it was something inside of me that shifted, where I remember the exact moment. It was,
Mhm.
I wanted to go to the gym, and he asked me why. He goes, "Why do I want to? Well, why do I want to go gym?" He goes, "He don't want to go," and I goes, "Well, I'm going," and he's like, "What? Are you going to go without me?" So yeah, and I literally just walked out of his door, and that was it. That was the end. So like it was the end of our relationship, but it wasn't quite the end of him because I was like, I still need to get my money back. And so I decided to raise a civil court case against him.
Mhm.
And it was one of the most hardest things that I'd done up until that point because I had nobody to guide me. I felt like I was on my own. And
Mhm.
even though I did pay a few solicitors, but they were charging so much money that I was like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get money back, not spend more money on this loser.
Yeah,
And
that's what happens in small claims court. Yes,
yeah,
it's usually not worth it. Right. Hmm.
exactly, yeah.
Hmm.
But I made it worth it. I was like, right, I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna
That's
fight.
good. That's good.
Yeah, and I had it in me, and I did fight, and I won. And
Good
then
for you.
he couldn't take it that I won, so he appealed. He spent however much to appeal against me. He lost, and then he went to appeal against the judge, and he lost that as well. And he was about to appeal again against one of the he was like the higher judge at the time, but th they wouldn't allow him. They said, no, that's it. They were like, the money that you're trying to appeal, you could have been paying Anu back. And so that was
Yeah.
it. Judgment was given. He had to pay me back. And
Okay.
this was like back in 2014. 15, 20, yeah. And yeah, t till this day, he's still paying me back on a monthly direct debit. I still see his name in my bank account every month as a reminder.
That is funny.
Oh, and
Oh
it's
my
like,
goodness. I'm
but
glad we started off with something humorous. That
oh
was pretty good.
right. because it could get really traumatic
Taking him
if
10
I ever.
years to pay back.
Yeah, yeah. Oh
Wow.
no, no,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. So I can understand the people pleasing because, with the low self-esteem, but I'm not understanding the trust issues. I mean, if
Mm,
you were sexually abused as a child, maybe we can touch on that now. When
mm,
did it happen? And, you talk about being silent. You couldn't tell anyone about it. How did you
yeah.
become trusting? So,
Oh, okay. Well, again, that was all linked to my people pleasing, you see. And this was only in my intimate relationships that I had where I would trust very easily. I'd
mm,
literally just, give everything of me to them like soon because I needed to feel accepted. I needed that
mm,
validation, didn't I? I needed them
okay,
never ever to leave me, never ever to abandon me. And
great.
so so I would literally give them everything. And it's just hence, paying for their holidays as well. So a lot of it was monetary as well, because I
Hmm.
was working very hard as well, again, because of the trauma, because for me, I just needed to feel like I was worthy and that I was, accepted and that I I meant something. And so I would overwork and burn out through that. And also I just didn't want to sit in silence on my own. And so like it was hard for me to just be. So I just ended up
Doing,
doing.
doing.
Obviously,
Yeah.
drugs were involved, where for me that was like an escape as well, where it would take me to another dementia, and that felt very freeing at the time as well, you see. So there were so many symptoms that I suffered. And unfortunately, a lot of this was because of what happened to me when I was 3. We had
Three.
a like being a obviously, I said to you about being Indians. My parents migrated to the UK for a better life, and they literally had nothing, so they were building from scratch. And so what they eventually did, buy a house, and then in order to obviously make more money, they decided to rent a room out. But that
Mm,
lodger turned out to be a paedophile, and where he would abuse me and just take advantage of me. My parents were busy working, they were busy building, so they didn't know what was going on. And he'd come into my room and just groom me, and he'd like go into my Wendy house. I say go in, he'd stand there with his pants down, and then he'd make me perform fellatio on him. So there was
mm,
just so many incidences, which obviously I had a lot of flashbacks growing up about it. Um, there was a few incidences where I did try to raise this, saying, that it wasn't right. I don't feel it was right what happened to me, because they make you believe that it's a game and that, it's our little secret, and that if anyone finds out, then I'll be in trouble. And so
mhm,
you believe them, don't you? Because they're obviously an adult figure. And
mhm,
so it just, yeah, things weren't feeling right as I was growing up. And so it was coming out, and it was hard. I guess it was hard for my parents to understand it or to even accept it, because there must have been a lot of shame and guilt with, associated with
When
that.
when did you tell them?
It was actually, I can't remember. There was like an incident when I was 6, when it
Okay.
came out with my auntie, because this paedophile, he would like when I had my friends come in, he'd do it with 2 of us. So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
so he was pushing his luck, obviously, wasn't he? Yeah, and so
Wow.
it came out through my auntie, because we were quite embarrassed to tell our parents. And
Hmm.
then, he did obviously eventually either move out or he got kicked out, something along those lines. But then, I still had all those memories that kept popping up. And so I needed to understand, what the heck happened. And so I'd raise it, but then I was just told that, why am I talking about this? Just, leave it. It's happened. It's in the past. Just move on now. Stop bringing up the past. And it's because
Wow.
they just didn't have the capacity to deal with it because of the shame
Mm-hmm.
and guilt, I realize. And
Mm-hmm.
I get it. That they were here, they were in this new country, foreign country, trying to build their life. And they didn't want to have to deal with, this Englishman playing with their Asian girl, because for them, again, they had their own issues to deal with, acceptance in the country and to try and fit in and to people please. So I get it. I
Mm-hmm.
get it.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a lot of years to understand why nobody helped me. But then
Wow.
unfortunately, it was me that suffered. And for decades of my life, I hated myself. I just wanted to die. And I tried
Mm.
to kill myself a few times by overdosing
Wow.
with drugs. I'd end up in A&E and casualty, and then I'd when I was in Gran Canaria, I went to jump off a third story building, and I survived because I didn't actually fall. I was actually hanging off the balcony underneath, and it was just
Mm.
really reckless incidences where I just didn't want to be alive, and the only thing that I was waiting for was death.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
Wow. 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 Yeah. Huh. Well, I said at the beginning that our stories are similar. My story was started when I was 10 with a pedophile, but he was like a family friend. Same thing. I was spending a lot of time at his house because my parents were poor and things like that. And he also got my friends involved in it too. It's really interesting. Really
Mm.
interesting. And yeah, I mean, I, didn't recognize that there was something wrong until I
Mm.
became 13 and started having boyfriends and recognized that I was no longer a virgin. And that's when I recognized that what we were doing was wrong. But
Mm.
like most women, I kept my story silence until
Mm.
I was in my 40s, and then I wrote a book about it, and that's when my mother and father, found out. It's very interesting that your parents found out at 6, and did they ever try to arrest the guy or anything like that, or they
I,
just thought it happened? Wow.
yeah, yeah, because I don't know if you're aware, but in India, it's a very regular occurrence. Like
Oh, really?
the last stats that I saw, there's one reported rape every 6 minutes, and that's reported rapes. That's not even taking
Wow.
into consideration, the sexual abuse that's happening behind the scenes in the villages of schoolgirls, because schoolgirls that they'll go out into the alleyway to obviously do their deeds because they don't have any toilets in the facilities. You have to go outside, and then there'll be pedophiles there waiting to sexually
Waiting
molest.
them. Wow. Yes, and also very true because they married the girls very young.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
sex is a big thing. Yeah,
yeah,
sometimes before their period, which is like
yeah.
around 10. So I understand the culture. Yeah, I understand the culture. Yeah. Wow. So
Wow.
I bet that contributed a lot to your low self-esteem and low self-worth because not only that the guy did it to you, but then your parents didn't help you. Is that what
Yeah,
contributed?
yeah. And then unfortunately, because I was so naive and vulnerable, I was just like this magnet for more abusers.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that happens,
Yeah.
isn't it? And I just, even up until the age of 18, I'd already had five predators who had taken advantage of me. And
Wow.
then that was it then. As soon as I hit the legal age to have sex, I was like, you know what? My body's a toy. Let's use this toy to my advantage with me having the power and control rather than giving
Right.
it away to anyone else. And so that was it. I was just reckless.
So many stories go that way.
Mm,
So many stories go that way. I went the opposite way. I went the opposite way because to me, I felt that because I was sexually active so young that men weren't going to respect me. So I wanted
yeah.
respect. So I went the opposite way. But so many people that I've spoken to, either even in the coaching conversation, they went that route, promiscuous
Mm.
and because they are, your body is now sexualized. That's the word, right? Sexualized, and that's the direction that you go in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you said you went into the drugs and you also had some of these domestic violence because of course you're dealing with narcissists and yeah,
Yeah.
because they can pick up your energy, you know. They can
They
feel it. They can feel it. So,
they can, can't they? Yeah. And then
yeah.
that's it. And then they'll get all of our darkest secrets out of us early, and then they'll
Yeah.
use it against
And then
us
they'll
at a
use it
later
against you. Right. Right.
date.
Yes. Wow.
God,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Wow.
crazy. Yeah.
Well, the good news about
Mm.
it is that we're both in this conversation and we have transformed our lives.
Yeah.
You know, again, your work is from victim to victor, right?
Mm.
And my book was called Out of the Snares, right? I'm out of that snares and I'm, going into something else and we both make successes. So anybody that's
Mm.
listening, you know that there's a pathway forward and the
Mm.
pathway doesn't always involve, yeah, like you didn't succeed at committing suicide, thank goodness. But it
Mm.
doesn't have to end that badly. It doesn't have to end that way. So, what are some of the subtle signs that unresolved trauma is still running someone's lives? I know that you were able to pinpoint the low self-esteem and being attracted to narcissistic relationships and being a people pleaser or, and giving everything that you have because you want people to like you. Is there any other signs that you want to bring out?
Yeah, I guess like big one is I mentioned as well, overworking, overachieving, because
Mm,
you need
okay.
that feeling of validation to feel
Mm,
accepted and to feel wanted and to feel like you are something and that you have something to give to the world, because that's what that's all we crave, don't we? When we're suffering from low self-worth, then we want ways to make us feel better. And
right.
so yeah, so it might come out in that in overachieving, but then it might also come out in like addiction. So it could be addiction to shopping. That's the big one that I see.
Really?
Because you need that feel good hormone, the dopamine hit from
Yeah,
obviously
yeah, yeah.
shopping. So that's an interesting one. And also, unfortunately, drugs are a huge one, as we know, and alcohol, because we want to escape. And
Mm-hmm.
then and also just the need of having, like, the fact that you need a relationship because you need to feel desired by somebody.
Yeah.
And so that's when we end up falling into bad relationships, because we're falling into them fast, and we're falling into them without having the self-love for ourselves, because that's where it all starts. It's loving
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, and that's hard to do as a trauma survivor. And it took me a while to even like myself, never mind love. And so, I know that it's not going to be easy if you have been suppressing your trauma for so many years. And I always advise my clients and anybody that, a way to understand if you do love yourself is to look in the mirror and just see, like, the first thing that you notice, is it your inner critic giving you any bad things that you may see in the mirror, or are you looking at the good things?
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's a nice little exercise, and
That's a
just
sign. Yep.
see what comes up. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
self-love's huge, and I know, it's all over, the internet as well, like social media, and because it's huge. I mean, how can we even love our children, never mind our partners, if we don't love ourselves? We
Right.
can't love from a depleted cup. We need to fill our cup first,
Yes.
first. And
Yes. Yes.
yeah, and so that
Yes.
comes from releasing any trauma which may be buried inside of you, and to release that first, and then to accept it and understand what happened, and then to eventually let go of any shame and guilt associated with that. So then what you can then do is free up some space within your body to then bring in the positive, bring in that love, bring in the warmth, and the gratitude and all these other beautiful things that we can
Yeah.
do now, to really self-care and self-love.
Mhm. Yes. I
Mm,
still don't even get it, why it is that we feel shame. I don't actually get it. You
mm,
know, I mean, again, I didn't start addressing my issues until I was in my 40s. And then
okay.
there was just around the time the Me Too movement was happening, and there is a company that was called something about silence, because 90% of male and female don't speak about it. And they
Mm,
just carry this shame, and they said, listen, you can't give consent. So even if you think that maybe, my when my father found out about it, my mom said, like your parents, why do you talk about that? And my father
yeah.
said that I was carrying on. Like if I had the power to give consent to a 50-year-old man, you know what I mean? And that really actually freed me, because you can't give consent. Even if you think it's implied consent, the law says that
Mm,
you can't give consent. So, yes, use the word, it's rape, right?
mm,
So, but yeah, a lot of us, don't talk about it. And the shame part, I really don't get, even though I'm in the same bucket, right? So,
mm.
yes. Okay.
Wow.
Um,
Mm.
uh, so that's pretty good. Now, why it is that I know you mentioned that is the culture, but when you started sharing your story publicly, I guess, how long ago did you write your book?
2020, that would
So
have been.
5 years ago. All right. So and that's the first time you shared your story publicly?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm.
Yeah,
It went
that's like
down.
me, right? I wrote mine in my book. So I shared it publicly. You said that you face both support and criticism,
Mm.
especially from your own community. How did you find the strength to keep using your voice despite, not getting support from your community?
Yeah, it was tough, very tough. I did actually go back into a trauma state, and I did have to then get enhanced help. So I had to go
Wow.
back to my healer. I had a coach, I had a therapist, because I was basically getting traumatized again because of the vulnerability associated with my story going out, and just the amount of people that were reading my story and contacting me saying, "I can't believe that happened to you." And it's it's not easy dealing with those kind of messages, because but you feel exposed, don't you? You feel very
Yes.
vulnerable. And
Hmm.
so out of that, obviously, I had some of my main people who supported me and who I heavily relied on then moving forward, because you realize then who your people are.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but then obviously there was a lot of shame associated with my story, because I guess people were probably asking, where were your parents? Why didn't your family support you? Where was your brother? But I never really mentioned my family in the book because,
Mm.
again, I wanted to keep them out of it. I just thought this was my story, it's my
Yeah.
journey. And so, yeah, obviously, I only included the people who I thought were relevant to the story, which includes my perpetrators, whose name I never use. Obviously, I had to make up. Um,
Did you
a,
know
a
his name?
Oh yeah, all of them. Yeah, I know all of their names. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But obviously,
Okay, sorry. I forgot there were more, but I was thinking about the one that was a roommate in your house. I mean,
oh,
because when he left, maybe you don't know where anything about him. So,
wait,
but you
yeah. To be
did.
honest, yeah, yeah. His name was Bill, and he actually died. Yeah, so he died. I think it was in my 20s or 30s. So he had
Okay.
had an early death, which is probably a good thing because then it meant he couldn't harm any more children. So I
Right.
was happy about
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Right, right, right. Okay. But all right. Yes, I forgot you had more. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's so unfortunate. Okay. So, how did your parents feel about the book? Are they still alive?
Oh yeah, they are. Yeah. So they didn't really say much. I think, my mum felt quite proud of me because I felt
Oh,
like there was this whole women empowerment thing going on there, because all her sisters and cousins in India were kind of praising it, saying, "Wow, Anu wrote a book." So for them, it was quite a big deal, and
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow, culture is so different, huh? Wow,
I
yeah.
know. It's just like,
Yeah, so yeah, you write a book. Yes, forget the story. You're an author.
forget the story. Isn't that funny? That
Yeah,
is
it
really
is.
and then obviously there was the man side of my family who weren't very happy with it,
Mm,
because they were saying, why are you exposing the family like this and you're putting shame to us? And I
right.
did have to, and I had to keep defending myself, saying, this isn't about you. There's nothing about you in this story. Stop
Yeah.
making it about you. This is finally
It's
it's
about
about
you.
me.
It's you.
Finally in
Right.
my life.
Yeah.
Oh
What
my
it's what
God.
happened to you. Yes.
Yeah.
Oprah has a book with a psychologist. I don't remember his
Yeah.
name because obviously nobody forgets Oprah's name, but the book is
Yeah.
called What Happened to You. So I'm glad that yeah, it is when people say, "What's the matter with you?" or, "Why are you the way you are?" It's because of what happened to you. You know what I mean? And yeah, so your story is about what happened to you, and it's not, the community. It happened to you, and it had far-reaching effects. It just didn't happen, and then because I was interviewing someone else with the same sexual abuse story,
Mm.
and she actually blocked it out. She didn't
Wow.
remember until she was having intercourse with
Mm.
someone and it flashed back then, right? Because she blocked it out. I think hers happened when she was 3 as well, and she blocked it out. But yeah, I mean, um, if you blocked it out and you totally forgotten about it and you go on to have a normal life, which rarely happens, right? You go
That
on to have a
doesn't
normal
happen.
life, that's
No.
fine. But a lot of times you're carrying that with you every day. You're carrying it into every relationship, every
Mm.
interaction, and we are not meant to be an island. We are meant to be in relationships. I don't
Mm.
even know what were my extenuating circumstances, because I've had lots of relationships, right? And I think that they've been fine, but they ended, right?
Yeah.
And it could
Yeah.
be, something that I'm carrying around that, they always say you think it's the other person, but it could be you, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
We end up obviously, blaming the other person,
the
whereas
other person.
whereas to me, healing was taking accountability, taking
Yes, yes.
responsibility. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Wow.
that's huge.
Wow. Yes. Okay.
Mm.
So, good conversation. We're covering, a lot of little nuggets along the journey. We're talking about what happened to you, how do you responded in relationships, how you felt about your body moving forward. We were talking about the community of silence and shame.
Mm.
Yeah, so then your work evolved from your book, and then you have a podcast, and now
Mhm.
you're working on a film called Silent Screams.
Yeah.
Again, this thing about we not talking and not being able to verbalize what happened to
Mm.
us and keeping it silent. And
Mm.
you know, I wrote you're talking about the backlash from your book. I deliberately wrote my book under a pen name.
Oh,
So nobody would know that it was me, right?
yeah.
So I understand exactly what you're saying. Then
Yeah.
I started a podcast, and then I talked about my story, and I went on other people's show and talk about my story, just like how you're doing now. And every time you speak, you
Mm.
are actually uncovering all that stuff, and it's coming out. I just recorded an episode, and it's talking about the healing journey, right? That's
Mm.
exactly what my episode was about. It's the healing
Yeah.
journey, and how you're excavating all these things that you've buried down, right? And the
Mm.
the first way to do it is speaking. So once you stop being silent, right, you are healing, right? So tell us about your film, Silent Screams, because it's a powerful title.
And it that also comes from a significant turning point of my life. And it was based upon kind of me waking up in the middle of the night with just I heard screams. It was like there were witches or cats or something screaming, and I woke up and I realized that it was actually me screaming,
Oh, wow.
my soul screaming. Wow.
Okay.
And I just cried and cried. I cried so much because that's when it started to come out, what had happened to me, because I also did block it out, because as soon as I hit 18 and I was reckless, it never occurred to me that I was a sexually abused girl. I just lived my life like I was just free spirit, really crazy. And,
Okay. All right. All right. Yes.
and so, and then, and then I lived my life that way. And everybody just thought I was this crazy party girl, taking loads of drugs, drinking loads, and just having mindless sex. And oh, I never even told you that I even started to date women as well, because I was so confused with my identity that I actually thought
Mm.
that I was a lesbian for a few years as well. So that was
Wow. You know
crazy.
that was that because of the abuse of men? That's why you went there, or
Yeah,
just
yeah, absolutely.
experimenting?
Probably a bit of both. Yeah. Also, it
Okay.
felt quite safe with a woman. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It happens. It
It does,
happens.
doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so going back to silent screams. So the reason why that happened was because I was in another abusive relationship prior to my narcissistic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just really bad with me, controlling me, and just putting me down. And he destroyed a lot of my apartment as well. And
Mm,
I went away for the weekend, and he couldn't take it because we were on the verge of splitting up. And then we did split up, and then I went away, and then I come back and my whole apartment had been vandalized, to the point
mm.
that I had he'd slashed my sofas, he'd
You're
smeared.
kidding.
No,
Wow.
yeah, he like this was like thousands of pounds worth of damage, to the point I had to like leave my whole property. Like he had these like tinned anchovies and fish tins, and he smeared them all over my clothes, and he ripped
Wow.
with like I had
What
like
a treat.
yeah,
Wow.
and at that point I had I was buying designer clothes because I was working hard or earning loads of money, spending recklessly on designer bags, and he destroyed everything.
He's destroyed everything.
Yeah.
You didn't take that one to court and try to get that money back, though?
So with no, so with the I chickened out on that time, to
You
be
chicken.
honest. I never had the inner strength. Yeah, because he
Right,
was
yes. That's why you
yeah.
went off of the other one because you said that enough is enough, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Because he was threatening me all throughout, and he was involved in like some criminals, and so
Hmm.
like yeah, so he'd already sent these criminals to actually rob my apartment. So
Wow.
I already had a robbery, and I knew it was him. So
Hmm.
I knew what he was capable of, and I got scared.
You got
Like one
scared.
of his
Yes.
yeah, one of his things was like he was gonna put a bomb under my car, and then
Oh,
when I started
wow.
it, the car would blow up. Yeah,
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
so
Isn't that terrible, the
yeah,
stuff that we have to deal with just
exactly.
because
Yeah,
we are attracting the wrong man? Oh my goodness. That is so sad.
it is,
Right.
isn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And so it was basically that night, when the police came around and they were like, we'll go and arrest him right now. And I said, no, I can't, because I'm so scared, because I was on my own,
Hmm.
vulnerable young girl at the time. I was 30, I think 31. And
Hmm.
so what I ended up doing was um, the silent screams happened that night. And then the next day, I decided to just make plans to get away from Manchester and that apartment. And that was it. Then I
Hmm.
never looked back. So yeah.
Hmm.
Mm. And that's basically, yeah. So I just felt like the movie really symbolized that night, of, somebody who's really at rock bottom in their life, that they have to make a change. They have to make a decision to make a change because they have no other choice. Otherwise they're going to struggle for the rest of their life. And so, the movie now, we have, we're in the eighth draft. Very happy with this draft now. I'm working with a producer called Craig Conway, who's been in the industry for decades, and we're in development phase at the moment. Bless him, he's been busy applying for funding because obviously we need money. So, and
Hmm.
yeah, really excited for, where this journey takes us now this year.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
So the silent screen is loosely based on your story.
Yeah, so it's not exactly my
Well, that's what I
Victoria.
said loosely, right? Hmm.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you described that well, actually. At
Yeah.
first it was, but it's transitioned so much now that it's actually it's like a bit of a cool kind of story now, and it's around like 19, 20-year-old students. So, and there's going to be party scenes, so I'm sure it's going to be a fun watch for people, as well as having a deep dramatic
Message. Yeah.
story. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Wow. Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Good
Yeah.
job. Good work. Good work.
Oh.
You have come through. Right. And I love the fact that you are now a complex trauma coach. I like that.
I know, yeah.
We're not talking about little crap here. We're talking about big T traumas.
So, I know, and that's purely because of my own journey. Because when you've undergone so many traumatic incidences, it becomes a
Yeah.
complex case. You're not
Yes.
you're not just dealing with one trauma, and so there's a lot
Okay.
to deal with, isn't there? And so I
Yeah.
think complex suits us well.
Yeah, a complex
Mm.
trauma coach. I love it. Trauma recovery coach. A great, great label. I love
Oh,
that. All right.
thank
So if we were to have a message for someone that's listening right now and they feel silenced, ashamed, or broken, what is
you.
one truth that you want them to carry with them after this episode?
I just want everyone to know that they have the power within them to make the change that they want to. And I want everyone to have that victorious mindset where they know that they can heal, they can move on past this trauma, because this, whatever happened to you, it doesn't define you. It may have impacted your life up until now, but you don't have to let it impact your life much longer. You can get help, you can heal, and you can start to feel safe in your body again, because safety is a huge thing for any trauma survivor. We just don't feel safe. And that all starts with somatic healing, which is like body healing. And so I'd advise everyone to seek support, seek go and find a healer like I did. The healer really transformed my life because she helped to unblock all my chakras, which was the start of
Mm,
my healing journey.
mm,
Because you'll find that all your chakras get blocked because they're
mhm.
protecting you, and we call it the ego defense barrier, don't we? And so we need to unblock those chakras for the energy to flow, for
The
the
flow.
healing to then be able
Mm,
to work effectively as well. So it's so interesting when you understand the body and how it's the most important vessel for you when you want to heal. So
yeah.
take care of your body.
Yeah. You know, this show is about the mind, but the body is the number one thing as well. It's the mind and the
Mm.
body, right? And I think I heard one of the monks say this, that we're all talking about the mind, but the body is what you live in. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and everything goes through the body, right?
Yeah.
We can talk about the mind all you want, but everything goes
Yeah.
through the body because that's what you live in. It's your house, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you can't discount the body, right?
Exactly.
So
Brilliant. Yeah.
yes, and yeah, and we hold our issues in our tissues.
Mm.
There's so many manifestations of, right, if you've got blocked chakras, you have diseases. People,
Mm.
I do this show and I speak to a lot of experts, and we get autoimmune diseases from trauma. We get,
Yeah.
cancer from trauma. We get all kinds of things. Again, we are talking about addictions, and we are talking about, the things that, alcoholism, the things that we do to ourselves, but the body remembers, and the body, does things from the trauma that we're holding in. Again, you said the same thing, that you blocked it. And when you blocked it, where is it going? It's being
Yeah,
stuffed in the body, right? Yeah. You don't
exactly.
remember it, but your body does, right? Your
Yeah,
body remembers everything. So it
yeah,
comes out in different ways, right? You can't block a dam. It's going to find a way out, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
really, yeah. So great
Beautiful.
story. I love, powerful. Like I started off by saying, it's a powerful story. Even before I heard
Mm,
it, I just knew it would be, right?
mm,
So how can listeners connect with you, Anu? Tell us your social media handles, your website,
mm,
your book, where they can find it. And
mm.
of course, it doesn't sound like the film is out yet, and how they would, watch the film when it's out.
Yeah, sure. So my whole brand is Victim to Victor with a number two. And so if you go on to my website, you can find out more about me. And on Amazon, the book is of the same name. And so you can order that. And also my social media channels, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok. So if you just go on to Victim to Victor and just type my name as well, you'll find me very easily. And I do like to post a lot of reels on Instagram, so I'm a bit more active on that platform. And like in the last couple of years, like me and a team of other four producers, we did actually produce our first ever movie called Parasites, which is actually a sci-fi thriller, just to obviously get the experience of, new filmmakers. And so that's we've basically signed a distribution deal, so that's going to be out this year. So yeah, if you follow me, you can find out more about Parasites, and then obviously Silent Screams will be in production, hopefully this year. And again, if you follow me, I've got my own dedicated Silent Screams Instagram channel as well, and you can find out more about that and keep up to date with that. So it'd be great to connect with you all.
And your podcast, what's that
Of
called?
course, yeah, Victim to Victor again. Yeah. And it's interesting because my podcast has taken a bit of a turn over the past year. It used to be all about trauma healing, PTSD, but I just found that like the more people I was talking to and working with, the more relational trauma is, it's
Mm,
such a huge deal in our lives,
yes,
the
yes.
relationships, not only with others, but relationships with ourselves. And so I kind of diverted into more the relationship stuff on my podcast now, about healing, so that we can love ourselves and love others and find more suitable partners for ourselves, because it's hard to find somebody who we're totally compatible with, that would support us on our journeys. And unfortunately, we're only going to attract partners, who mirror the level that we're on. So if we're running
Hmm.
off a low vibration, then we're going to attract low vibrational partners, insecure
Hmm.
partners. But if we're able to run off a higher frequency, then we're going to attract more elated people into our life. And that's where we want to be, don't we? For
Yeah,
fulfillment
yeah,
and
yeah.
happiness.
It shows up. It shows up. Who you are is how you show up. And I was listening to something the other day that sounded really great. And you always know these things, but when you get sound bites, it's always great to repeat it. And he
Mm,
says, like, high vibration does not travel to low vibration. So it seeks out other high vibration, right?
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you were in a high vibrational state, then, your energy is looking for a match, and a low
Mm,
vibration is not a match, right? So
mm,
but the people that prey on you, however they do it, they've got the little feelers out, and they can spot someone that has low self-esteem, and
mm,
that's who they prey on. And
mm,
your narcissist story, how he love bombed you, and did all the things that he because he was grooming you
mm,
to take your money, whatever he wanted. Yeah, narcissistic psychopaths, they are
mm,
very, very deliberate in what they do because they're
Yeah.
always going towards a goal or a purpose, and the goal is to take from you what you have, right? So
Wow.
yeah, you put them in the same bucket, right?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, hit the nail on the head there. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, wow. Okay. So, as we wrap up, I want to say that what a powerful, necessary conversation. If something that Anu shared resonated with you today, I want to hear this clearly. I want you to hear this clearly. Sorry. You're not broken and you're not weak. Many of the struggles we face in adulthood are not character flaws, they are unhealed wounds asking for attention. And
Mm,
healing doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means releasing the shame, reclaiming your voice, and choosing yourself, sometimes for the very first time. I encourage you to check out Anu's work, including her book, Victim to Victor, her podcast, her upcoming film, Silent Screams. Oh, I'm going to link it in the show notes, to her website. Of course, you can get all those things from her website. And her story is a reminder that silence may protect others, but speaking your truth can save your life because once you start speaking about it, that's when the healing starts. And if this episode helped you in any way, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a review or send a message. Send Anu a message. You never know whose healing journey you might be supporting simply by sharing your own. Until
mm.
next time, remember when you transform your mind, you can truly transform your life. And this is what this show is about, and I'm glad I put that bit in there about the body because the body and the mind work together. It's mind body connection. We can't just be up here in the mind and forget the body because the body is very important too. So, Anu, thank you very much for sharing your story, your powerful work that you're doing. Yeah, your story needs to be told because, again, as I ended a minute ago with my out through message, um, uh, you're saving someone's life because someone that maybe is in a position right now thinking, I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to, do all these things, think that I'm a free spirit, and become promiscuous. Then they catch a disease or something. You know what I mean? So, yeah, hearing someone's story and hearing how they have gone through the tunnel and now you're a butterfly, you're flying. I've been through the story too, and now I think that I'm a butterfly, so I'm flying, but when you're in a tunnel, you can't see the butterfly. You don't know that there's a butterfly is available to you. So these stories help us recognize that we're not alone, and there is a pathway to healing. So, as we wrap up, any last words?
Stay victorious.
Yeah.
Because th this is why I named my brand Victim to Victor, because I was a victim majority of my life until I won that court case. And it was finally a feeling of victory that I felt. And now I
Ah.
live off that victorious mentality. And it's so empowering. And yeah, I'd advise everyone to try and get there if you can.
Yes, yes, yes. I love it. Right. Yes. Paint to purpose, victim to victor. There's all these, little bumper stickers, but it just means a process.
Mm. It's a
A
process, yeah.
process, right? Yes. All right, guys. Well, listen, thank you for tuning in to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life. Definitely go pick up a copy of Anu's book and follow her, especially if you were once a victim. All right. Thanks again, Anu. Thanks again for tuning in. Until
Thank
next time, namaste.
you. Namaste.